What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Prospect Recap. I'm your host, James Ivy Williams, and today I have with me my Midwest Regional Scout, Evan Mo. How do you say last name again, Mo?
A Skilleter.
Skilleter.
There you go.
Evan Mo Skilleter. We are going to discuss in reverse order Bryce McGowens at 41 on our current mock draft, Kennedy Chandler at number 23 on our current mock draft, and rounding out the top these three prospects with A.J.Griffin from Duke at number 10 on our current mock draft. This is actually bittersweet because this will be our last prospect recap until the actual NBA draft this year, because we've got some other stuff that we have to do. So me and Mo are going to try to knock this one out of the park and make you guys miss us and pray that we come back and do it again soon. So with that being said, I will kick us off with Bryce McGowens from Nebraska, 6'7" shooting guard, who we currently have listed as the number 41 prospect on our latest mock draft. Some counting stats on Bryce: 16.8 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 1.4 assists. He shot 40.3% from the field and a lackluster 27.4% from the three-point line. So going right to some pros for Bryce, his shot mechanics are actually okay. I mean, he didn't shoot the ball particularly well from the field. I think he was actually much more of a volume shooter, in my opinion, than an efficient shooter. And so I think that's why his numbers were pretty low on both the field goal and three-point side overall. I think he was his team's primary scorer in every game they played, whether it was in Big Ten play or non-conference play. He was the focal point and go-to guy on the team. And because of that, I feel like the numbers dipped drastically for me from that side. He's got much better shot mechanics, in my opinion, as a catch and shoot shooter than off the dribble. But I think it's pretty fluid, and he has the ability, the athleticism and length to kind of shoot over the top of smaller defenders, which I think is a plus also. Moving on, I think he's an athletic wing. He has the ability to kind of finish in and around the lane, in and around the paint, above the rim, whether it's Euro steps, dunking the basketball, making timely cuts, all that kind of stuff. I think he has the good size athleticism to kind of finish around the rim pretty well. As a perimeter perimeter defender, really good lateral quickness, really good, like long arms. Again, back to the athleticism, very athletic. So I think, coupled with the length, athleticism, and lateral quickness, he's has the potential to be a really good on-ball defender in particular. He also does a good job playing, jumping the passing lanes. He didn't get a lot of steals this year, but I think when you saw him in the lanes, it was very obvious that instincts were there, and the ability to affect and disrupt the passing lane was also there. Another thing I like about him is his ability just to kind of like rebound in traffic and then push out into the break. He averaged 5.2 rebounds a game, which is a decent amount for a shooting guard who pretty much plays on the perimeter the majority of the game, but has the ability to kind of mix it up, get a rebound, push in transition, and create opportunities, whether it's just simply getting to the other end of the floor before the defense gets set, getting the lane, or even finding teammates to create opportunities for them to score. And lastly, just his ability to create off the dribble, in my opinion. He has a decent handle. It's not elite by any stretch, but I think it's good enough, along with, again, the height and athleticism coupled with that. So ability to put on the floor, get into the lane, make some mid-range jumpers, get to the rim, finish athletically around the rim. All those things are pluses for me, for Bryce. The big cons, I think, right now are the shooting percentage. Again, going back to the shooting percentage, while he was his team's primary shot creator and scorer, the inefficiency in which he shot the ball was still something that raises concern for me, only because it's a small sample size of basketball, right? And then you factor that in high school, nobody shoots at a high percentage. So, like, in theory, he probably hasn't shot a high percentage ain't recently at all. I mean, probably ever, to be honest. And so now you put him into an NBA court where he's not going to be a primary scorer, so he's going to be somebody secondary or even second unit kind of stuff. And now those guys, you actually want them to be more efficient than less efficient, because they don't get as many opportunities as a primary guy would get. And so I would kind of worry about that, because I'm not sure if he'll be able to knock down consistent open jumpers if that's what he's getting on a swing action. as a corner shooter. The next thing is I think the lack of assertiveness, in my opinion, was an issue that I was concerned about. I saw him in person against Auburn earlier in the season at Holiday Hoopsgiving, and every NBA team was there, and they were all there to see Jabari Smith Jr. And he just was kind of there. I was actually very disappointed that he didn't assert himself more, because while every team may be here to see Jabari, this is an opportunity for you to showcase that I'm a lottery pick as well. I have NBA talent. I'm on the court with another NBA player, and technically really too, because Walker was there as well. So we're on the court, two other NBA players. Why not impose my will? Even if, again, no one's taking you out of the game, you're shooting a low percentage anyways. In my opinion, I would just get shots up. And so I was a little disappointed that he didn't show any assertiveness while still being the primary guy on his team. I feel like he was definitely not assertive enough, in my opinion. I feel like, that 16 points should have been 22 points, in my opinion, because they didn't have anybody else to really rely on a consistent basis to create shots for himself. Alonzo Trier was there, but he was smaller, undersized, and he was more of a streaky, rhythm shooter. So when he was off, he was off. Bryce had to be a constant for them. And so those are the primary things, along with the ball. I think he can tighten up his ball handling as well. So those are the things that I think could be better for him. And those are the kind of pros and cons for Bryce, in my opinion. With that being said, we can simply, I know, Mo, you said you didn't have a lot on Bryce, so we can simply just kind of push this thing forward and move on to Kennedy Chandler from the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, so I'll start with the stats just like you did. 13.9 points, 46% from the field, 38% from three on 3.7 assists. He shot 60% from the free throw line on 2.9 attempts, 3.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 2.18 steals, and 2.5 turnovers. So the thing that stands out with me offensively for him, first of all, is his handles. Super tight handles, quick. Keeps the ball low to the ground. He's small himself. It's about 6 foot, 6'1", depending on who you ask. We'll find out soon, I'm sure. But
5'11".
5'11". Yeah. But he stays low to the ground and he takes care of the basketball. He handles the ball a ton. Only 2.5 turnovers. Again, 4.7 assists. So you like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's shown some ability to create off the dribble, to create some space. Not necessarily, I wouldn't call him a 1v1 or ISO scorer or ISO threat, but he's definitely flashed that ability. He's comfortable navigating through traffic, and he's a good passer. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a flashy passer. He's not whipping one-handed passes from one corner to the other, but he's making the right passes. He hits cutters. He gets into the lane, manipulates the defense, and he's just a solid ball handler and distributor. In terms of scoring, I like the jump shot, nearly 40%. We said 38% from three. He doesn't get a ton of lift, and when you're 6 foot or 5'11" in the NBA, you definitely want to get some lift. But it seems like he's got some longer arms, so the consistency you like, but you do worry a little bit about 60% from the free throw line for a guy that shoots 38% from three. So on just 3.7 attempts, you wonder about the sample size. You wonder about the consistency, but it still looks comfortable. He's not afraid to take the shot, and I think it could develop into a relatively, at least a respectable shooter from outside for him. He's super athletic, and that definitely stands out defensively for him. He's got quick hands, 2.18 steals, we said when we were talking about stats, but super quick hands, a great on-ball defender. The only issue is, he's small. And he might, and we'll talk about this with weaknesses in a second, but he might have to play next to a primary ball handler that also is lacking in size. And so you kind of wonder what he's going to be like defensively. But again, he's a relatively strong player for his size. He's a little bit slender. So talking about the weaknesses a little bit, the defense is a concern only because not too sure where he's going to play. And when I say that, I mean, when we say he's a decent passer, he's still the kind of guy that in terms of scoring, you're going to need to get him the ball on the move. You're going to need to hit him at least moving a little bit because he's super quick and he does a nice job on the move. But that means someone else is going to have to be handling the basketball.
Mhm.
So just some concern there. Streaky 3-point shooter eh, is another kind of question. That the 60% from the
Mhm.
free throw line. Um, so I said he's a good scorer off the dribble, off the move, excuse me, but he didn't do well getting buckets off screens and handoffs.
Mhm.
He scored, this is according to Synergy, but he scored 0.52 points per screen and 0.75 points per handoff. So, again, he's got some playmaking ability, but uh, you definitely want to see him hit threes off, like off movement, right?
Mhm.
Eh, yeah, off those screens, off those handoffs. So we'll see what happens there. But again, great defender. He'll take care of the basketball. He'll be able to run an offense. He might not be dynamic. He might not be breaking down defenses at a high level, but he's at least going to take care of the basketball when he first gets into the NBA and probably be able to run a second unit if he
Mhm.
needs to.
To me, I'm not surprised by any of this stuff. Um, the issue is, I think the slight frame. I think is probably going to be the biggest knock on him. And then, like you said, he's not like breaking guys down to, he's not, while he has a good handle, I don't necessarily think he utilizes it enough to really create his own shot. And I think that's going to be a hindrance. I think that's something he's obviously going to be able to work on because he has the handle already. Some guys have to work on the handle. He has it. He just has to work on it to where he actually creates good separation to get a shot off. Because, like you said, there's not a lot of lift on his jumper, which is going to be a problem when he's probably going to be guarded by bigger, stronger, more athletic guys on a more consistent basis. So I think that's going to be an issue. The creation of separation, the ability to shoot the ball and the move, the things you're talking about, and then just a slight frame. I mean, so they're cons, but I think he has some tools and some and some intangibles that are beneficial for sure at the next level. So kind of see where he is. I think 23 is a good spot, but I can see guys. I think say this all the time. Guys anywhere 21 to 40 can shift. It depends on where you are, depends on who's picking. So while we have been 23, I wouldn't be surprised if you went 33 or 43. I mean, I just wouldn't. It would just depend on who's picking and what's the need for those teams in those spots. So, but I like Kennedy overall. I do. Just he's small. But moving on, we can go ahead and move on to last but not least, A.J.Griffin, number 10 from Duke.
Yep. So 10.3 points a game, 49% from the field on 7.5 attempts, 44% from three on 4 attempts, 79% free throw shooter, 3.9 rebounds, 0.9 assists, 0.5 steals, 0.5 blocks, 0.6 turnovers. A.J. Griffin's a guy that I like a lot. And it's not necessarily, I mean, he's a good player and we'll talk about his game for sure. But the first thing to me that stands out is that you can't find a bad thing about this kid online, anywhere. Like, you talk to people at Duke, you talk to people that knew him in high school. He suffered some injuries in high school, but kept a positive attitude, kept working hard. Leads Bible studies at Duke. And now I'm a man of faith, right?
Mhm.
But you don't have to be a man of faith to know that a guy that's willing to lead Bible studies on let's be honest, in a locker room that guys don't necessarily care about that stuff. Obviously, if you know anything about Duke basketball, they were loaded with talent. So
Mhm.
he wasn't the primary guy, wasn't really the secondary guy, and oftentimes wasn't the tertiary guy either, right? But he's the consistent fella that's willing to stand in the corner, take a shot when he needs to. He moves the ball.
Mhm.
He doesn't need the ball in his hands, right? He's happy to be constantly moving, constantly working the defense off the ball, finding his shot, finding an opening. He's always drifting around the 3-point line when his teammates are moving. Like, he is a coach's dream. I still think he's going to be a consistent like 40% 3-point shooter in
Mhm.
college. He did show some creation ability. He's a good he does a good job with like hesitation moves. He's not necessarily the fastest or quickest first step guy, but he's subtle with his pump fakes. He shimmies a little bit. Just knows, he has a good feel for the game and knows how to get himself open. And you really like that out of a guy that can shoot from outside, and the potential for him to be able to attack closeouts and just manipulate the defense that way. Good cutter. We talked about the way he moves. He can pass. He showed flashes of that Again, he wasn't the primary ball handler, wasn't tasked with being a playmaker, but he did show some ability to do exactly that. And then from what I've read, 7-foot wingspan, and he's a tough kid. Played some good defense, especially on ball. He's got a strong frame,
Mhm.
and you really like that. There were times where, and we'll get into the negatives a little bit here, but um, there were times where maybe off ball he gets a little bit lost. But remember, dude got hurt in high school. Like, what was it, 2 or 3 injuries where
Mhm.
he was just not playing basketball.
Right.
And so to go from being injured in high school a bunch to playing at Duke at a high level, that's a big adjustment period. And for a guy that's super coachable, that seems to absorb and handle coaching and criticism really well,
Mhm.
you think the potential for him to put the defense together is pretty high. So um the mechanics, the shooting mechanics, it's tough to talk about that with a guy that shoots so well, but
Mhm.
he's got some weird mechanics, gets really deep into his thighs,
Mhm.
a little bit rigid. But again, I mean, 44% from three is
It goes
nothing to
in.
sneeze at.
It
Yeah,
goes in.
exactly. So like you'll see some reports that kind of criticize that a little bit. And hey, every guy can improve, right? If he
Mhm.
can get a quicker shot off or get a little more lift or whatever it is, then sure.
Right.
But he can only improve. And so, um, man, I like him. Like I don't have a ton of negatives. The only thing I wish is that maybe he played somewhere else where he got the ball more, so we could
Right.
see more of what he can or cannot do. Because
Mhm.
again, he stays within himself, right? He
Mhm.
wasn't a guy that tried to do too much. And like I said, coach's dream, like
Yeah.
truly a hard worker, a good kid, and someone that doesn't need the ball in their hands, but is willing to work hard for the team and do whatever he needs to do. Like I really like the chance of him maybe not being a first team all NBA guy ever, but being a really consistent pro for a really long time.
Yeah. So you know what? I know I said I wasn't high on him until I just looked at this, and this is something I completely forgot about until now. He's a legacy kid.
Yeah.
So
Adrian
like,
Griffin, man.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like actually everything you just said makes perfect sense because his dad was a role player his
Yep.
entire career. So you get a kid who's probably who has elite skill set for coming from high school, but was pretty much probably taught by a father who understood how to fit in on a team and sustain for a long period of time. I think his dad played 12, 13 years in
I read 10 years,
10,
but yeah.
10. So I was giving him extra years then, extra years. But but a guy like that, so he probably understands like you said, he's third options sometimes. So how do I fit and make an impact? And what you talk about is a guy that makes an impact at whatever level he's probably been on. And
Yeah.
obviously in high school, he's bigger, stronger, faster than everyone else. But like you get to Duke where everyone is pretty much the same and you don't have the mindset to that I don't need to necessarily do that because you've got other teammates that want to do it and need to do it for their own personal reason. I'm just going to fit and play, and he's steadily kind of ticks his way up every mock. And I know some had him pretty high, pretty much for the most part, but he climbed ours for sure, to say
Yeah.
the least.
And you can understand why he's not like people aren't looking at him at top 5, top 6, even top like 10 in most cases,
Right.
because the ceiling is probably not as high as some of those guys that have the elite athleticism, the whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the clean injury history, whatever it is. And that's fine. Like I don't
Right.
think that's a knock on AJ. I just think that, in fact, I think the way he's climbed up boards, and he's up to 10 on our board,
Mm.
but the way he's climbed up boards is a testament to who he is and how hard he's worked.
Yeah.
Especially again, like we're talking about a guy that played 23 minutes and got 7 shots a game, um, going top 10, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a big deal. That's really cool.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Actually, I'm not sure my age, but I remember when his dad first kind of like broke into the NBA, and one of the announcers were talking about how somebody said, "Well, if you go see him the first time, you're probably not gonna like him." He said, "But if you see him another time, and another time, you're gonna love him." And so it was like one of those things, like kind of very similar. Nothing is because you don't like him because there's nothing that jumps off the page about him. Really, it's just like he's just solid. And so go back to it again. He's solid, if nothing else, along with really good size, really good length, really good shot making ability from the 3-point line off the catch. I mean, at worst, he's a 3-and-D guy.
At worst.
At
At
worst,
worst.
at
Yeah.
worst, he's three.
A good 3-and-D for
You
sure.
know, and so if you look at the Suns in particular, Mikal
Yeah.
Bridges and Cam Johnson are both solid 3-and-D guys. I
And
mean,
making a lot of money.
right. And Cam wasn't even known as a defender, but you get to the league and hey, this is how I'm going to the court. And they both kind of they both play their roles very well. They're both long, have good athleticism, shoot the ball very well. I mean, if nothing else, it's modern NBA. I mean, I'm switchable on offense. I'm switchable on defense. I can play multiple positions. You know, who doesn't like me? You know, so whether you get them at 10 or 50, those guys are kind of around and will be around for sure. So,
and I want to reiterate 6'6", 7-foot
7-foot
wingspan and thick build. Like
yep.
that's a really, really good frame.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like physically, there's nothing about him that you don't like and nothing about him that is going to be a concern at the next level. You know, like we just talked about Kennedy a little bit being slight. Bryce is even a little slight. AJ ain't slight. You know, I mean, everything about him says like that's an NBA body is what that is. That's an NBA body. You look at them, that's what they look like. That's what they look like. And so I think he fits, if nothing else, he fits a solid role player, solid 3-and-D guy that could in theory be around for a long, you get the right fit. Get right fit matters for sure in this case, but right fit, right system, right team, he's in the league 10 plus years, just like his pops.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, go from there. But this was smooth, Mo. This was smooth. So I appreciate you. Prospect recap, 14 weeks in a row. This has been the most content I've ever created for the company in consecutive weeks for sure. Between the videos and these things. So it's kind of bittersweet that we're going to put a pause on this for a little while.
Yeah, got a lot of good help. Got a lot of good help too behind
for
you.
Sure.
Right? Like it's
for sure.
It's been phenomenal to be a part of this team and see some of these guys work. It's been awesome.
For sure. Thank you so much for jumping on this final one for a little while, and then we're gonna show these people something in a few weeks for sure. We're gonna show these people something in a few weeks. So we got some stuff coming, guys. So stay tuned. And again, thank you for tuning in to Prospect Recap 14. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.